The boardroom's sterile chill seeped into my bones that afternoon, 3 years ago, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel, precise and unyielding, dismantling my pitch with questions that exposed every fragile seam in my research. I stood there, palms slick against the podium, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as the panel's faces blurred into judgment. Her gaze, though, remained sharp, pinning me in place with an intensity that felt far too personal for a mere evaluation. That failure shattered my internship aspirations, leaving me adrift in a sea of rejection letters and self-doubt. Now, starting my new role at Hale & Associates, the elevator dings open to reveal her as my direct manager, Jordan Hale, unreadable as ever, her silhouette framed against the glass walls. She steps into my office without knocking, her presence filling the space, that same formidable composure stirring the old ache I'd buried deep, a noose of power tightening around us both. The memory floods back unbidden as I settle into my desk, the hum of the air conditioning echoing the fluorescent drone from that day, pulling me under like a riptide. It was my final interview for the prestigious summer program at a top consulting firm, the kind of opportunity that could launch a career or crush it outright. I was 22, fresh from grad school, my notes meticulously prepared, my suit pressed to perfection, despite the knot of nerves twisting in my gut. The conference room had been a cavern of polished mahogany and impenetrable glass, the panels seated like sentinels, executives in tailored power suits, their expressions masks of professional detachment. But Jordan Hale, then a rising partner at just 30, commanded the head of the table. Her dark hair pulled into a sleek chignon, her eyes a storm gray that seemed to pierce through pretense. She leaned forward slightly, her fingers steepled, and began. Her first question landed softly at first, almost conversational, inquiring about my market analysis for the case study they'd assigned, a hypothetical merger in the tech sector, fraught with ethical gray areas and financial pitfalls. I launched into my response, words tumbling out with the rehearsed confidence I'd practiced in front of my mirror 100 times, citing data points and projections that I'd triple-checked the night before. But then her follow-up came, laced with that low, resonant timbre that vibrated through the room, challenging the assumptions I'd built my entire argument upon. And how do you reconcile the short-term gains with the long-term erosion of stakeholder trust? Your model seems to prioritize optics over substance. The words hung there, heavy, and I faltered, my mind scrambling for the rebuttal I'd prepared. But her gaze held mine, unblinking, demanding more than numbers. It sought the core of my reasoning, the vulnerability beneath the polish. The room grew quieter, the other panelists shifting subtly, their pens pausing over notepads as the scrutiny intensified. I pushed forward, adjusting my glasses with a hand that betrayed a slight tremble, elaborating on risk mitigation strategies. But Jordan interjected again, her voice gaining an edge that sliced deeper. That's theoretical. In practice, this approach would invite regulatory scrutiny. Have you considered the precedent from the 2018 antitrust rulings? Her points were irrefutable, each one unraveling the thread of my presentation, like a seam giving way under pressure. The humiliation burned not just in the professional exposure, but in the way her eyes lingered, appraising, as if she saw through to the insecurities I'd hidden behind my charts and graphs. It felt intimate, that destruction, her composure a fortress while mine crumbled, leaving me breathless, exposed in a way that stirred something forbidden amid the wreckage, a pull toward her authority that left my pulse racing, even as defeat settled in. By the end, the panel's murmurs confirmed it. My pitch, once a beacon of potential, lay in tatters, and Jordan's final nod, cool, decisive, sealed the rejection that followed weeks later. Yet, in the quiet aftermath, as I packed my portfolio with shaking hands, the scent of her perfume lingered in the air, a subtle blend of sandalwood and authority, haunting my thoughts long after I'd fled the building. It invaded my dreams, that fragrance, mingling with the echo of her voice, a reminder of vulnerability laid bare before someone so formidable. Even then, in the sting of failure, there was an undercurrent I couldn't name, a magnetism in her unyielding presence that made the loss ache deeper than career setback alone. Now, 3 years on, that echo reverberates as I stare at the email from HR confirming my reporting line, directly under Jordan Hale. The power shift twists like a blade. She's no longer the distant judge, but the daily arbiter of my success. Her office just down the hall. Her expectations, a constant shadow. I smooth my blouse, willing the tremor from my fingers, but the old residue clings, the way her scrutiny once left me undone, now amplified by proximity, stirring a longing I'd convinced myself was buried with the past. As the clock ticks toward our first team meeting, I brace for the orbit she's pulled me into once more, the corporate cage closing tighter with every unspoken layer between us. The team meeting unfolds in a conference room that feels too small for the weight of her presence. The glass walls reflecting the cityscape like a distorted mirror of ambition and isolation. I take my seat at the far end of the table, my notebook open but untouched, as Jordan outlines the quarter's priorities with that measured cadence, her words mapping out strategies that bind us all to her vision. Her silhouette cuts against the skyline beyond, sharp and unyielding, a reminder of the power she wields effortlessly. Every nod she directs my way lands like a subtle claim, pulling me deeper into the orbit I can't escape. The others chime in with questions, their voices a distant hum. But I feel her gaze settle on me intermittently, appraising, as if testing the ground between us, the professional distance that barely conceals the undercurrent from 3 years ago. When it ends, she gestures for me to follow her back to her office, the hallway's carpet muffling our steps, though mine echo louder in my ears, a rhythm of reluctance and anticipation. My workspace adjoins hers through a shared glass partition, a transparency that offers no real barrier, the corporate cage snapping shut as I cross the threshold into the open-plan floor. Her office is a study in controlled elegance, sleek lines, minimal decor, a single potted orchid on the windowsill defying the sterility. She settles behind her desk, motioning me to the chair opposite, her fingers drumming once, a brief, deliberate tap, before she slides a stack of files across the polished surface. "You'll handle the preliminary analysis on the merger due diligence," she says, her voice that low timbre again, resonating through the space between us. Each syllable precise, yet laced with an intimacy that makes my skin prickle. It's a command wrapped in instruction, her directives flowing like a current I must navigate, feeling both guided and ensnared. I nod, flipping open the top file, my pen scratching notes as she elaborates on timelines and key deliverables, her explanations weaving through the complexities with an ease that underscores her authority. The air carries the faint trace of her perfume, sandalwood threading through the office's neutral scent, stirring that old residue, making the room feel smaller, more charged. She rises midway through, circling to my side under the pretense of pointing out a clause in the contract, her shadow falling over my shoulder as she leans in close. The warmth of her breath brushes my neck, a fleeting warmth that sends an unwelcome heat coiling low in my core. I freeze, my handwriting faltering mid-sentence, the proximity igniting a spark I hadn't anticipated. Her nearness a tangible force that blurs the line between oversight and something far more perilous. "Here," she murmurs, her finger tracing the line on the page, the gesture efficient yet lingering just a beat too long, her arm nearly grazing mine. I swallow against the sudden dryness in my throat, forcing my focus back to the text, but the knot in my stomach twists tighter. A mix of vulnerability and that forbidden pull resurfacing. When I spot a minor oversight in my initial skim, a overlooked regulatory footnote, I hesitate, then admit it aloud, my voice quieter than intended. I might have missed this angle on compliance. Her gaze softens fractionally, the storm-gray eyes holding mine without the edge of judgment I'd braced for. Instead, there's an ambiguity that unravels me further. Is it mercy? A subtle invitation to reveal more? Or merely the patience of a manager assessing a new hire? The uncertainty hangs there, heavy, twisting the ache into something sharper, more insistent. As she nods and clarifies the point herself, her explanation a bridge that draws us closer without touching. The afternoon stretches in a rhythm of emails and data pulls, her office light spilling through the partition like an unspoken tether, every glance across it amplifying the power imbalance. By late day, as the floor empties and the skyline darkens to twilight, my inbox pings with her message, an after-hours review of my progress, scheduled for the conference room down the hall. The screen's glow casts shadows that mirror the charged space between us, a prelude to whatever isolation the evening demands, pulling me back into her gravity with no escape in sight. The conference room's lights dim as the last colleagues trickle out, their footsteps fading into the hush of the emptying floor, leaving only the soft whir of the ventilation system and the distant pulse of the city beyond the windows. I gather my notes, the stack of reports heavy in my arms, and enter the space that's transformed from bustling hub to intimate arena under the low glow of a single overhead fixture. Jordan is already there, seated at the head of the table, her laptop screen casting a cool blue light across her features, sharpening the lines of her jaw and the subtle curve of her lips. She glances up as I approach, her storm-gray eyes unreadable, and gestures to the chair beside her. Close. Too close for the professional veil we're meant to maintain. Her movement economical yet commanding, drawing me into the orbit without a word. The air feels thicker here, charged with the residue of the day's exertions, her perfume threading through it like a subtle current, sandalwood mingling with the faint metallic tang of the air conditioning, pulling at the edges of my composure. We dive into the merger analysis, her voice initiating the debate with that resonant timbre, low and deliberate, mapping out potential pitfalls in the due diligence process, as if charting a treacherous landscape. Your initial projections overlook the integration risks, she says, sliding a report toward me, her fingers lingering on the edge of the page, tracing the staples curve with a precision that mirrors her mind, each motion fluid, hypnotic, unwillingly capturing my gaze as it drifts from the text to the elegant lines of her hand. I counter with data from my afternoon's research, words spilling out in a rush to prove my ground, but her responses come layered, probing not just the numbers, but the underpinnings, echoing the demolition from 3 years ago, yet softened now, warmer, as if she's testing the fortifications I've rebuilt since then. The discussion weaves through regulatory hurdles and financial synergies, her questions delving deeper, almost personal in their insistence. What drove your assumptions here? The same instincts from your presentation? The reference lands like a spark, stirring the old ache, but there's no cruelty in it. Only a curiosity that feels like an invitation to reveal the vulnerabilities beneath my analysis, her gaze holding mine across the table, steady and insistent, unraveling me thread by thread. As the hours stretch, the room contracts around us, the city lights blurring into a mosaic of neon and shadow that presses against the glass like an uninvited witness. We lean over the same document, our chairs angled close, the heat from her body radiating through the scant inches between us, a slow burn that seeps into my awareness despite my efforts to focus. Then it happens. Her knee brushes mine under the table as she shifts to highlight a clause. The contact brief, accidental perhaps, but it lingers in the electric aftermath. Her fabric against mine, sending a jolt that races up my leg, coiling, low and insistent, stirring a longing I dare not name, one that blooms in the silence between our words. I pull back slightly, feigning adjustment of my notes, but the space hums with it now, the unspoken layers thickening the air. Her expression remains composed, unreadable, yet her voice dips lower in the next exchange, a rumble that vibrates through me, discussing contingency plans with an intensity that blurs the line between strategy and seduction. The debate intensifies over a contested valuation model. Her arguments, sharp, yet laced with that probing warmth, as if she's not just challenging my work, but seeking the woman behind it, the one who faltered under scrutiny before, now standing firmer, yet still drawn to her gravity. I push back, citing precedents I'd unearthed, my pulse quickening with the proximity, the way her breath evens out in concentration, close enough that I catch the subtle rhythm of it. Handing her the revised spreadsheet, our fingers graze, skin to skin, a fleeting press that sends a current racing up my arm, sharp and unbidden, rooting me in place as the jolt echoes in my veins. She doesn't pull away immediately, her touch holding for a beat, her eyes lifting to meet mine in the ensuing silence, that unreadable mask cracking just enough to reveal a flicker. Curiosity, perhaps, or something mirroring the heat building in my core. The moment stretches, heavy with potential, the reports forgotten as the charged quiet envelops us. Her presence a cage and a sanctuary all at once, amplifying the ache into something profound, undeniable. Finally, she straightens, closing her laptop with a decisive snap that breaks the spell, the clock on the wall marking the lateness of the hour. "That's enough for tonight," she says, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent, rising to gather her things with that efficient grace. I nod, stacking my files, the brush of our knees a ghost in the space we've created, but as she pauses at the door, her parting glance lingers, a promise woven into the ambiguity of her gaze, pulling me toward the shadow of next week's performance review, where the isolation might demand even more. The week unfolds as a relentless trail, shadowing Jordan through the labyrinth of meetings and corridors, each step binding me closer to her rhythm, a quiet storm that engulfs without mercy. Mornings begin with her stride ahead, heels clicking against the marble floors like a metronome, dictating the pace, her posture impeccable, filling every boardroom with an authority that draws eyes and silences doubts before they form. I follow, notebook in hand, absorbing the way she commands the space, leaning forward in client briefings, her voice a resonant thread weaving through agendas, dissecting proposals with that unerring precision that once unraveled me. In the strategy huddle with the partners, she navigates alliances with subtle gestures, a tilt of her head dismissing weak arguments, her storm gray eyes scanning the room until they settle on me briefly, appraising, pulling me into the wake of her influence, where my own contributions feel tentative, shadowed by her formidable light. The torment lies in the observation, the constant absorption of her essence, the elegant flick of her wrist as she underlines a key point on the whiteboard, the subtle shift in her stance that conveys unyielding control. Trailing her from one session to the next, I feel the pull intensifying, her presence a gravitational force that distorts the professional facade. Every room we enter together contracts around us, the air humming with the undercurrent we've yet to name. Lunchtime yields to a quick debrief in the hallway, her words clipped, yet laced with that low timbre, directing revisions to my draft report, and I nod, the proximity of her form, tall, composed, stirring the old ache, now amplified by the daily immersion, as if her orbit is rewriting the boundaries I'd drawn around my desires. Elevator rides become the true escalation, those confined ascents where the door slides shut, sealing us in a steel and mirrored cage that amplifies every sensation. One afternoon, after a grueling negotiation with external counsel, we step in together, the space shrinking as others file out floors below, leaving us alone in the descent. Her perfume envelops me then, notes of amber deepening the sandalwood base, an aura of authority that clings to the air like a secret. Our shoulders brush as the car jolts slightly, the contact unintended yet electric, sending a shiver through me that I mask by adjusting my bag. The air thickens with what we withhold, the silence stretching, heavy and charged. Her reflection in the mirrored wall showing her profile serene, unreadable, while my pulse races in the confines, the warmth of her nearness coiling low, a forbidden heat that blurs the line between oversight and intimacy. I steal a glance, catching the faint line of tension at her jaw, wondering if she feels it too, this tangible pull in the enclosed space, before the doors part and we step into the lobby's bustle, the moment fracturing but lingering like an echo. Back on the floor, the internal storm brews fiercer during a midweek review, where I venture a question on her approach to stakeholder engagement, risking exposure by challenging the core of her directive. Wouldn't prioritizing internal buy-in dilute the timeline? My voice wavers slightly, the words a bridge to deeper waters. But she pauses, her gaze locking mine across the table, and for a breath, her rare smile cracks the facade, a subtle curve, warm against the professional mask, revealing a flicker of vulnerability that mirrors my hidden desires, the shared underbelly of ambition and longing. It disarms me, that glimpse, softening the power's edge just enough to stir a profound ache, as if she's granting access to the woman beneath the authority, pulling me toward confession, even as I retreat into notes. The break room offers a forbidden glimpse later that day, the hum of the coffee machine a backdrop to our brief overlap as I refill my mug. She enters, pouring her own with economical grace, her hand resting near mine on the counter, the porcelain edges almost touching, the nearness and ache that radiates through my fingers, a sanctuary I crave yet fear. The warmth of her skin inches away, tempting a bridge I dare not cross. Our conversation drifts to lighter terrain, the weekend's demands, her voice softening in the neutral space. But the proximity hums, electric. Her fingers drumming once against the surface, close enough that I feel the vibration, stirring the longing into something insistent, undeniable. She lingers a moment longer than necessary, her eyes meeting mine with that ambiguous depth, before excusing herself, leaving the counter's echo and the storm unresolved. As the day wanes, a project crisis erupts, a critical data discrepancy in the merger files, pulling us into overtime. The office emptying around us like a retreating tide, amplifying the intimacy of our shared isolation in the dimming light. The discrepancy unravels like a frayed wire in the merger files, a hidden liability clause buried in the appendices that could torpedo the entire deal if not addressed. We huddle over our laptops in our office as night falls fully, the city's lights blurring into a distant haze beyond the windows, casting elongated shadows that dance across the desk like unspoken secrets. Jordan's fatigue shows in the slight slump of her shoulders, the way her fingers pause mid-keystroke, rubbing the bridge of her nose with a weariness that humanizes her formidable frame. The room's overhead light dims automatically to conserve energy, leaving us in a cocoon of screen glow and ambient hush. The ventilations whisper the only counterpoint to our focused silence. I type furiously, cross-referencing the clause against regulatory precedents, my eyes burning from the strain. But her proximity anchors me, the subtle heat emanating from her side, close enough that the edge of her sleeve occasionally whispers against my arm, sending faint tremors through my focus, amplifying the isolation as the floor beyond empties completely, sealing us in this shared vigil. She leans over to adjust my screen angle, her movement fluid yet deliberate, angling the display toward the light. Her hair brushes my cheek in the process, a silken cascade that carries the deepened notes of her perfume, sandalwood warmed by the hours, mingling with the faint salt of exertion. The contact is fleeting, but the warmth of her body radiates through the scant space, a slow burn igniting unspoken needs that coil low in my core. Her breath grazing my ear as she murmurs, "Try zooming in here, the footnotes buried deeper." I nod, my voice caught in the dryness of my throat, the proximity unraveling my composure thread by thread. Her arm hovers near mine, the fabric of her blouse shifting with each breath, close enough that I feel the rhythm of it syncing with my own accelerated pulse. The air between us thickening into something tangible, charged with the weight of what we've withheld all week. The adjustment complete, she doesn't retreat immediately, her form lingering in my peripheral vision. A presence that blurs the boundary between collaboration and intimacy, stirring a longing that aches, profound and insistent, as if the crisis has stripped away the last veils of professional distance. As we dissect the implications, the conversation drifts beyond the data, her voice softening in the quiet lulls, mapping the emotional terrain we've skirted since my arrival. "This kind of oversight," she says, her tone laced with a rare vulnerability. "It reminds me of my own early stumble, a deal I championed that nearly sank my career before it began." The revelation bridges our chasm unexpectedly, her storm gray eyes holding mine with raw intensity across the glow of the monitors, the words spilling out in fragments, as if the isolation has loosened her guard. She describes the boardroom reckoning, the scrutiny that mirrored what she'd once inflicted on me, her composure cracking under the weight of executive doubt, leaving her exposed in ways she'd never anticipated. The parallel hangs there, heavy, her gaze unwavering, drawing me into the shared vulnerability, the way failure had forged her resilience, yet lingered as an indelible scar, much like the echo of that presentation still haunted my ambitions. I listen, my fingers stilling on the keys, the confession weaving a thread of connection that softens the power's edge, her eyes reflecting a depth that mirrors my own hidden fractures, pulling us closer without a touch. The room's dimness amplifying the intimacy of her unguarded moment. The analysis nears resolution, our revisions sinking in real time. But tension simmers beneath the progress. Reaching for the shared mouse, our hands meet on the keyboard, fingers overlapping in a pause that stretches, skin to skin, the contact deliberate in its hesitation. The touch holds, heavy with potential, her palm warm against mine, calluses from endless reports grounding the electricity that races up my arm, coiling through me like a current finally unleashed. Her breath quickens in the quiet that cages us, a subtle hitch that betrays the restraint we're both exerting. Her eyes lifting to mine in the suspended silence, unreadable yet stormy, with the same unspoken needs blooming in the space between. I don't pull away, the weight of her hand a sanctuary and a torment, the slow burn cresting into something urgent, profound, as if this convergence has mapped every ache we've carried, the professional peril intertwined with personal peril, her proximity a magnet I can't resist. The moment lingers, charged, until she withdraws slowly, the absence leaving a void that echoes louder than the crisis we've averted. The night ends unresolved, files saved and backups confirmed. But as we pack up under the fluorescent revival, she turns to me with that ambiguous gaze. "Join me for the client dinner tomorrow," she says, her voice steady yet laced with invitation, weaving professional duty with the personal peril now humming between us, pulling me toward whatever blurred lines the evening demands. The invitation lingers in my mind through the next day, a thread pulling taut as I prepare for the evening, selecting a blouse that feels both professional and perilously close to revealing. The restaurant is upscale, a haven of dim chandeliers and linen-draped tables where deals are sealed over aged scotch and veiled negotiations. We arrived together in the company car, her knee inches from mine in the leather confines, the city's lights streaking past like fleeting confessions. At the table, Jordan's poise captivates immediately, her voice threading through the conversation with effortless command, outlining partnership synergies to the clients, seasoned executives whose nods affirm her authority, their attention riveted as she dissects market projections with that resonant timbre. She sits across from me, her silhouette framed by candlelight that gilds the sharp lines of her collarbone, the subtle rise of her blouse with each breath. The facade is impeccable, her laughter measured when a joke lands, but beneath it, her foot nudges mine under the tablecloth. A subtle claim, deliberate in its insistence, the pressure of her heel against my instep sending heat pooling low, coiling through my limbs like a secret current. I shift slightly, masking the jolt with a sip of wine, but the contact persists, intermittent, a Morse code of intent that unravels my focus amid the clink of silverware and murmurs of agreement, her unreadable gaze flicking to mine once, stormy and knowing, amplifying the ache into something insistent, forbidden. As courses progress, seared foie gras yielding to herb-crusted lamb, the discussion turns to toasts, glasses raised to potential alliances that could reshape quarters. Jordan lifts hers, her eyes finding me across the flickering candles, the weight of that stare undoing me thread by thread. It's not overt, just a lingering hold amid the general clatter, but it stirs a deeper longing beneath the surface, her composure a mirror to the turmoil she ignites, the power's edge honed sharper in this public arena where every glance risks exposure. The clients lean in, oblivious, praising her foresight. But I feel the undercurrent, the way her words circle back to my contributions with subtle endorsement. Our analyst's diligence here was pivotal, each nod toward me a quiet tether, binding me closer while the nudge of her foot resumes, warmer now through the fabric, sending tremors that blur the boundary between collegial and carnal. The air thickens with the scents of rosemary and red wine, her perfume weaving through it, sandalwood deepened by the evening's warmth, pulling at the edges of my restraint. I respond when prompted, my voice steadied despite the heat building, but her proximity across the table hums, electric, a slow burn that leaves me breathless, yearning for the private fractures beneath the polished exchange. Midway through dessert, creme brulee cracking under heated spoons. She excuses herself briefly, and I follow moments later, citing the need for air, the restaurant's opulence suddenly claustrophobic. The alley beyond the side door offers shadow and cool night, brick walls damp with evening mist, the distant hum of traffic a counterpoint to my racing pulse. Footsteps echo behind me, and there she is, Jordan emerging into the dimness, her form silhouetted against the door's glow. "Everything all right?" she asks, her voice low, stepping closer, until her hand steadies my arm, fingers curling gently around my elbow. The contact lingering, electric against the chill, her palm warm through my sleeve, grounding, yet igniting a shiver that races up my spine. I nod, words failing as the touch holds. Her thumb brushing once, almost absent, but the intimacy of it fractures the night's facade. Her nearness in the shadowed seclusion, a sanctuary laced with peril. The city's neon pulsing faintly beyond, like a heartbeat mirroring our own. She doesn't release immediately, her storm gray eyes searching mine in the low light, the ambiguity twisting the knot tighter. Is this concern, or the first breach of the lines we've towed all week? We linger there, the cool air sharpening every sensation, and she leans in to whisper strategy for the closing pitch, her lips near my ear, breath a warm caress that teases the shell, sending a cascade of heat through me, proximity that aches for more uncharted territory. "Keep them focused on the upside," she murmurs, her voice a rumble against my skin. The words professional yet laced with something deeper, her hair grazing my shoulder as she pulls back fractionally, eyes locking with mine in the charged quiet. The tease undoes me, leaving a profound void, the almost touch a promise withheld, stirring longings that coil insistent and unnamed. I murmur agreement, my hand brushing hers in retreat, the spark lingering as we re-enter the warmth, the blurred lines now etched indelibly. Back at the office the following morning, the evening's residue clings like a second skin, fueling a heated argument over the pitch revisions, her frustration cracking the professional mask at last, voices rising in the glass confines, drawing us inexorably toward confrontation. The morning light filters through the blinds in her office, casting slatted shadows across the desk where the pitch revisions lie scattered like battlefield remnants. The evening's blurred lines now a powder keg, igniting under the strain of unmet expectations. I enter with my updated draft, the pages crisp in my hands, but Jordan's expression tightens as she scans them, her storm gray eyes narrowing over the rim of her coffee mug, the steam curling like unspoken accusations. "This adjustment to the risk assessment, it's too conservative," she says, her voice low at first, threaded with that resonant timbre, but gaining an edge that echoes the boardroom from 3 years ago, slicing through the air between us. I defend the change, citing the client's volatile sector data, my words measured yet insistent. But her frustration builds, mirroring the past demolition, yet laced now with personal stakes. The way our proximity has woven ambition with something deeper, binding us in a web of professional peril and uncharted longing. The glass walls amplify the isolation, the open floor beyond a distant hum, leaving us cocooned in this escalating friction. Her authority pressing against my resolve like a tide rising. She paces then, her heels sinking into the carpet with deliberate steps, closing the distance in circuits that bring her perilously near, her presence overwhelming in the confined space, the scent of her exertion mingling with the sandalwood perfume, a heady warmth sharpened by the morning's tension, her blouse clinging slightly to the flush creeping up her neck. I watch, transfixed, the subtle rise and fall of her breath accelerating, a vulnerability peeking through the cracks of her composure. I want to reach out, to soothe that heated skin with my fingertips, to claim the rawness she rarely reveals, the ache twisting deeper as her orbit pulls me under, blurring oversight into intimacy. "You're undermining the entire narrative," she counters, stopping inches away, her voice rising in pitch, the intensity a storm that mirrors our shared history but surges with the weight of what we've skirted. The forbidden pull now fueling the clash, her eyes locking mine with a fierceness that stirs the heat low in my core, coiling insistent amid the rage. The argument crests over a contested valuation pivot, my rebuttal landing too sharply, and she slams the file down, the sound reverberating like a fracture in the glass between us. "You think this is just numbers? It's about conviction, something you lacked then and seem to doubt now." The words hang, heavy with the past, but her gaze softens fractionally in the silence that follows, stormy with regret and something fiercer, a revelation brewing in the charged quiet. She exhales, rubbing her temple, the gesture humanizing her fortress, and admits it then. The old demolition wasn't cruelty, but mercy, sparing me a worse fall into a firm rife with ethical pitfalls that would have tainted my start. "I saw potential in you, buried under inexperience. Pushing harder would have broken you before you could rise." The confession bridges the chasm, her voice softening to a rumble that vibrates through me. eyes holding mine with raw intensity, regret etching lines around them, yet laced with that deeper current, pulling the personal stakes into sharp relief. The way her intervention, harsh as it was, had unknowingly steered me here, into her gravity, where power and desire entwine. In the heat of it, anger surges, and I step forward, words tumbling out about the scars she'd left. But she grips my wrist to halt me, her hold firm, intimate, fingers curling around my pulse point with a pressure that sends a shiver racing up my arm, blurring rage into desire's sharp edge. The contact grounds us, her palm warm against my skin, the electricity of it rooting me in place, her breath quickening as the flush deepens on her neck, vulnerability exposed in the unyielding grasp. Time suspends, the office fading to the rhythm of our shared pulse, her unreadable mask cracking further, eyes stormy with the same unspoken needs. I don't pull away, the touch a breach that aches profound, stirring longings we've caged all week. She releases slowly, the absence lingering like a promise, and the tension simmers into a tentative truce. Apologies murmured over revised pages, her nod sealing a fragile peace that leads to the weekend retreat, where isolation will test our restraint beyond the corporate veil. The truce from our argument lingers like a fragile thread as we board the shuttle to the Lakeside Lodge, the weekend's team-building mandate pulling us from the city's grip into a natural hush that amplifies every unspoken layer between us. The drive winds through forested roads, the canopy dappling sunlight across Jordan's profile in the seat ahead, her posture relaxed yet commanding, even in repose, the subtle rhythm of her breathing syncing with the engine's hum, drawing my gaze despite the rows of empty seats. Arrival scatters the group into activities, but fate, or the itinerary, orchestrates our pairing for the afternoon hike. Trails snaking through pine-scented woods where the earth's damp loam cushions our steps, forcing us side by side on the narrow path. Her stride matches mine effortlessly, breaths mingling in the crisp air, close enough that the occasional brush of her arm against mine sends faint tremors through my sleeve. The escaped cage of the office yielding to this organic proximity, where the rustle of leaves and distant bird calls underscore the deepening pull. Her presence, a quiet storm, syncing our pulses without a word. As dusk settles, the group gathers at the fire pit, flames crackling in a stone circle that casts flickering shadows across faces flushed with exertion and relief. Jordan sits beside me on a log bench, the warmth of the blaze mirroring the heat radiating from her form, our thighs inches apart in the circle's intimacy. Wine flows from shared bottles, loosening tongues to tales of triumphs and missteps. And when a colleague's quip draws her laughter, rare, warm, a low cascade that breaks free from her usual reserve, it resonates through me like a vibration, her knee pressing mine in the shift of seating. Deliberate now, in the firelight's glow. The contact, a steady ache that blooms low, insistent, her woolen sweater grazing my shoulder as she leans to refill our glasses. The pressure holds, unyielding yet tender, stirring the longing we've caged, her storm gray eyes catching mine across the flames, unreadable, but laced with a depth that mirrors the urgent want coiling in my core, the natural sanctuary amplifying the forbidden, every shared sip deepening the bond forged in isolation. Later, as embers dim and the group disperses to cabins, conversation turns inward by the pit's fading light, her voice softening to confide career fears, the relentless climb that left scars deeper than boardroom battles, the isolation of authority that echoes my own hidden doubts. Sometimes I wonder if the summit is worth the solitude, she murmurs, her hand covering mine on the log's rough bark, fingers interlacing with a weight that grounds me utterly, palm warm and calloused from endless signatures, stirring a profound, undeniable peace laced with the urgent want that simmered all week. The touch lingers, her thumb tracing a subtle circle against my knuckles, electricity humming beneath the skin. her gaze holding mine in the fire's last flicker. Vulnerability bridging the power's chasm, pulling confessions from me in turn. The echo of that presentation still haunting my ambitions. Her mercy, a shadow I'd only begun to forgive. The air thickens with it, sandalwood mingling with wood smoke. Her nearness a sanctuary where fears unravel. The deepening pull cresting into something raw, intimate. Her breath quickening in sync with mine. Night cloaks the lodge fully when we wander to the dock alone. The lake's surface a mirror to the stars overhead. Wooden planks creaking under our steps as the water laps gently below. She turns to me there, faces inches apart in the profound quiet. Her silhouette etched against the night sky. Storm-gray eyes, now stripped of ambiguity. A clear invitation withheld. Lips parting slightly, as if to bridge the gap. The almost kiss hanging electric in the space between. Her hand rising to tuck a stray hair behind my ear. Fingers lingering on my jaw, with a tremor that betrays her restraint. The proximity aches, profound. Her warmth cutting the chill. Breaths mingling in the suspended moment. Urgent want cresting, yet held at bay by the dawn's inevitable return. We pull back fractionally, the T's etching deeper. Unspoken promise thrumming as we retreat to separate cabins. Returning to the city Monday, the professional world intrudes sharply. A major review looming that forces the power dynamic to its breaking point. The retreat's intimacy, now a ghost haunting the glass walls. The major review convenes in the boardroom that haunts my memories. Its polished surfaces and high ceilings a cavern echoing the fluorescent hum from 3 years ago. The panel's faces a blurred array of scrutiny under the recessed lights. I present the merger analysis, my voice steady despite the knot twisting in my gut. Charts projected against the wall, mapping risks and rewards with the precision Jordan's guidance has honed. The questions come sharp, probing the ethical undercurrents and financial projections. But as doubt ripples through the room, she interjects from her seat at the head, her posture unyielding, voice resonant with a fierceness that silences the murmurs. This work anticipates the very pitfalls that derailed similar deals. Her diligence uncovers integration vulnerabilities we've overlooked, she asserts, her storm-gray eyes sweeping the panel before settling on me. The advocacy, a quiet claim that shifts the power's hum. Her defense weaving through objections with irrefutable logic, pulling the tide in my favor, as if staking her own credibility on my potential. The others nod, concessions murmured, the approval sealing not just the project, but a fracture in the dynamic that's bound us. Her authority no longer a solitary fortress, but a bridge extending toward mine. The room's sterility yielding to the undercurrent we've nurtured in shadows. As the meeting adjourns, footsteps receding down the hall, we linger, alone, amid the scattered notepads and cooling coffee, the door clicking shut behind the last colleague, sealing the space in profound quiet. Jordan turns to me then, her silhouette framed against the cityscape sprawl, the afternoon light gilding her features with a softness that belies her command. She closes the distance in measured steps, the air thickening with the sandalwood trace of her perfume, her hand rising tentative to my cheek, fingers cool against my flushed skin, tracing the line of my jaw with a tremor that mirrors the vulnerability she's unveiled piece by piece. The touch ignites the slow burn we've contained, her palm cupping my face as she leans in, lips meeting mine in a release of years' tension. Soft, consuming. A press that deepens with the weight of mutual longing. Her breath mingling with mine in the suspended hush. The kiss a sanctuary, where power dissolves into shared ache. Her free hand finding my waist to steady us both. Time fractures, the boardroom fading to the rhythm of our pulses sinking, her lips parting slightly to invite more, the intensity raw yet restrained, stirring profound needs that bloom in the intimacy of confession. She pulls back fractionally, forehead resting against mine, her voice a whisper laced with the storm's residue. I've wanted this since that day. Your fire beneath the falter, the way you rose despite me. The admission bridges the final chasm, her vulnerability matching mine in the quiet revelation, eyes holding raw intensity as we navigate the risk, the corporate perils of blurred lines, the judgment awaiting beyond these walls, yet forging a path that defies the cage, her hand slipping into mine with a squeeze that grounds the promise, fingers interlacing, warm and unyielding. The moment fades into forward glance, her thumb stroking my knuckles, the connection an indelible truth against the world's scrutiny, pulling us toward whatever uncharted territory lies ahead. Her silhouette lingers in the doorway, the space between us charged no longer with fear, but with possibility. A quiet storm finally calmed. In her eyes, I see our connection as an indelible truth. Vulnerability forged into strength. If this slow burn resonates, subscribe for more tales of forbidden desires. Comment your own hidden ache below.